All right. All right. Well, welcome everybody for our second lesson in our series of Mixed Game Madness. Tonight's lesson is going to be on Omaha High-Low. And last week was on Omaha High, which is an easier game to learn than Omaha High-Low. The reason being that you are only doing one set of hands when you're playing that game. And in Omaha, you're essentially playing two games within one game. But we're going to explain some of that to you. Just understand that in the beginning it might be a little confusing, but once you practice at it, it becomes second nature in time. So what I wanted to do real quick is, I'm not exactly sure what presentation stuff you have, Donna, but would yours be at the beginning part of it or in the middle part of it? And just tell me how you want to go.
We're just visiting.
We're just what?
We're just visiting.
Visited. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So Donna Blevins is also hosting these with me. She also is an avid mixed game player and has done quite well in this game. As a matter of fact, her and I were playing Big O Pot Limit, which was kind of new for me in Jacksonville, and I got my ass handed to me. She did quite well, but it was just a ram and jam kind of a game, and sometimes you sit in those games and either you don't fold soon enough or you get rivered and somebody else takes down the pot, or you are in a hand that you should have never started with. So I was probably a little bit of all three of those things at different parts of the session, but it was a lot of fun anyway, and I never get to play Pot Limit Big O. And I do not recommend that for any beginners at all. If you're going to play Big O at all, which is a 5-card Omaha game, you will only want to play it in the limit setting and low limit at that until you get really good at it. So tonight we're going to talk about Omaha High-Low. And one of the things that you need to know is that in this game, of course, it's going to be dealt out the same way as Omaha High, in that you're going to have 4 starting cards in your hands, and then there'll be 5 community cards on the board, just like in Hold'em. The difference is that you have a possibility of winning a high hand with your cards, and you have a possibility of winning a low hand in your cards, depending on what comes on the board. The game that Omaha High-Low is called Omaha 8, which means 8 is the qualifying low. That means ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are the low cards. You have to have 2 low cards in your hand plus 3 low cards, 8 and under on the community cards, in order to have a qualifying low hand, okay? So I'm going to kind of explain to you really quick by showing you, but Donna, I'm going to go ahead and let you take over real quick while I set up some cards, and then I'll turn the screen around. Okay?
Okay, sure.
Right.
I actually wanted to show a particular image that I found today, which is about stretching your comfort level. When I saw that way to stretch, I thought someone was actually making a picture of me. 6'5", reaching up. But that's what I want you to think about. When you're learning something new, when you're working on learning a game, you need to stretch yourself. And Lupe was right, which is you want to be sure to put yourself in a situation that is as safe as possible to learn. A lower limit game. I have to tell you that this past weekend was my first time sitting down at Big O. And the Big O's that I had seen before were huge games. Now this Big O happened to be, it was pot limit, but it was 1-2 blind. Of course, very rarely did it ever come around to 1-2. It was oftentimes, most oftentimes it was 10, and sometimes it was 20 or 30. But I want to let you know that I wanted to sit down and I needed to have I needed to have some failure. We only learn we only learn from mistakes. I didn't want to intentionally fail, but I wanted to put myself in a situation that was new to me and that I was uncomfortable with, but I needed to learn. Now, fortunately, Lupe was there, and the table was full when she came over, and I said, you want to sweat me? Sit right here behind me, because she has played Big O a lot, but it is Limit O. And it's a small cash game, theoretically a small cash game. You could buy in for a minimum of $100. However, when I sat down at the table originally, it had almost broken because there were 4 players left and one player had about $3,500 in front of him. The other players were much less than 100, so the ones that he had taken had left. Okay, you ready, girl?
I'm gonna turn my little thing here. And I gotta see if you can see. Can you see 3 hands completely?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna turn it down. How's that?
Just fine.
Okay, so these are 4 set hands in Omaha. Now, one of the things I want to talk to you about in Omaha is that you want to look at your starting hands. There are amazing hands and there are crappy hands in Omaha. So when you are looking at your 4 cards that you're dealt, there's playable hands. Now the playable hands are usually, of course, being the monster hands, what we're going to call. Remember we talked about double suited games last week? We talked about having, like ace, ace, king, king, double suited was a monster. Ace, ace, queen, queen, or any of those varieties where you have double suited hands, because it makes your hands stronger. Well, in Omaha, you're going to have monster hands when you have something like ace, ace, deuce, 3, and they're double suited, because you have a monster high for 2 flush draws, and you'll have a monster low because you have an ace, a deuce, and a 3, which gives you 3 possibilities for the possible nut low. Also, monster starting hands are your highs when you have ace, ace, king, king, all the same things that we did before. So if you were playing from last week's starting hands, you would look for those hands, and then, but for low parts, you're going to be looking for your ace, ace, deuce, 4, ace, ace, deuce, 3, ace, ace, deuce, 5, double suited. If they're non-suited, it's okay if it's like ace, ace, 2, 3. Ace, ace, I'd go far as like 3, 5. You want to stay away from anything that isn't what I call the 4 cards between an ace and a 10. Any 4 cards between an ace and a 10 with at least 1 suit pretty much is going to be a playable hand if they're connected. Okay, so remember we talked about if you have a double suit or even like connected cards where they'll all run together, that makes it stronger. So here are 4 hands. In the first person, in the seat 1 is going to be the far left, the middle will be seat 2, and seat 3 will be on the right. We're playing short, can you tell? If we were looking at Omaha High only, what we have here are some pretty decent starting hands, because we have a queen, king, or a king, queen, 10. The queen and the 10 are suited. You have 3 to a Broadway, but what you don't have here is any card that gives you the nuts. So there's no ace there, and so the possibility of getting the nuts for a flush, of course, don't exist in your hand unless the ace comes down on the board. Moving over to seat 2, you'll see that they have 3 low cards and a jack. So, but it is a suited ace. So the ace 6, ace 3 are suited, making it stronger. An ace jack can give you a Broadway with a couple of gaps, but I probably would call in that instance. To the right, all the way, we have the nut flush with the ace of hearts with the 3, because that's one possibility. We have second nuts with a king with a possibility with the flush, with the deuce, king deuce of clubs, and you also have 3 amazing low hand draws, because the lower the better. We call it a wheel. The best hand in Omaha for the low is ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5. It's a wheel. It's called a wheel. If it's all the same suit, so it's like a straight flush, that's called a steel wheel. It's very rare, very rare. But when it hits, it's a monster because you hit the high and the low. It's kind of fun. Now, Omaha High-Low is really a game where you want to scoop the pot. So what you're doing is taking your cards, looking at your cards, and then the community flop. And if it looks like you are drawing to a nut hand, then you want to stay in. If you feel like gambling, you're in a gapper. If you aren't getting any kind of cards that match yours at all, you need to get the hell out of that hand. Okay? So I'm gonna put down the flop now. Here's the flop. 4, 5, king. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So now if we analyze our hands, what do we have? Seat 1 has a king, and that's it. So they have a pair of kings. They have no low draw at all. They are probably going to check, I would assume. Seat 2 looks at that and says, well, I have a 1 spade, and I've got a 3-6, which is an open-ended straight, because they have the 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's an open-ended straight draw. They also have an ace 3, which is a second nut low. Because remember, ace deuce 3, 4, 5 is the nuts. So with an ace 3, 4, 5 is a draw for the nut low, or not the no, second nut low. The people on the right in seat 3 have hit an excellent hand as well, because they have the nut low draw with an ace deuce in their hand. They also have a king, and they also have a 4 to a straight, because they have deuce, tray, 4, 5 in their hand. Now remember, you can only play 2 of your cards from your hand for the low, and 2 of your cards for the high hand on the best 5 cards. So then we all, okay, let's say, I think that that seat 1 is going to check. I believe that seat 2 is going to bet. And I believe that seat 3 is either going to raise, because they've got so many possibilities, or they're going to at least call at minimum. What would you do, Donna?
Depending on which hand I have. First of all, if I had the seat 1, I wouldn't be in there to begin with.
Okay.
I would have folded before the flop. I would have probably stayed in seat 2, as long as there wasn't some real heavy raises. There's some potential there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm happy with the third hand.
The third hand. The third hand is a very strong hand.
It's a strong hand.
Okay.
Strong potential, because one of the biggest problems is counterfeiting your low cards, meaning that let's say the third hand up there was ace deuce 10 king, and so you've still got ace 2 3. That's great. I mean, ace deuce 10 king. So what happens, let's assume that the only other low card that comes is a deuce. That means that you just have ace deuce 10 king. You counterfeited your deuce. That means you don't have a low hand.
Right.
So this ace 2 3 is a good hand.
So we're going to say that seat 2 bet, and seat 3 raised, and then seat 1 said, screw this, I'm out of here. Okay, they're gone. So those are the only 2 hands that are left. And seat 3, they called. Okay, here's the turn card. We burned and turned. Here's our 8. Now the 8, remember, is the qualifier. You must have 3 on the community cards that are 8 and below in order for there to be a qualifying low hand. So now let's analyze what we've got up there. Your seat 2 has still that 4 card to the straight. They have second nut low, and they have pretty much nothing else. That wasn't a good card. They don't have any clubs. There's a very scary possibility here. So if I were them, I'm going to check. Now, if you look at seat 3 has the absolute nuts with an ace deuce. They still have the wrap with the 2, 3, 4, 5 for a straight. And they have 2 clubs on the community cards and 2 clubs in their hands, so they still have a second nut club flush draw. Okay? If I'm those people and I got checked 2, I'm definitely betting. Now, if seat number 2 is a gambler, they'll call the bet. If they're smart, they'll get the hell out of that hand, because there are so many outs for that club flush to hit. And there's so many possibilities that this guy could have already. They could have a set. They could have had, maybe in their hand, they have a 4 or 5. Like they have the 6, 7 in their hand, so they've already got a straight. There's just so many things that go against that second hand. So let's just say this person's a gambler. They're going to go ahead and call. And now we're going to see the river card. Here's the river card. The river card is the deuce of hearts.
Oh, that sucks.
It really does suck. Because now what has happened is seat 1, and we're gonna learn how to count in Omaha, okay? So remember, it was 8 qualifier. The best thing for you to do is to look at the 3 lowest possible cards on the deck, which is the 5, the 4, and the deuce. Fit your cards into that. So let's say the highest or the wait a minute. So what we're going to do is look at the 3 lowest. That's the deuce, 5, 4. So 5 being the highest of those 3, you're going to go 5. Look in your cards. I don't have a 4, but there's a 4 on the board, so it's 5, 4. The next I need is a 3, which this one has, right? And then the deuce is the next one. It's on the board, so there's 3 cards to the low that I can use, and the 2 in mine makes it the ace. So now I have 5, 4, 3, deuce, ace. That is a wheel, those 5 cards, right? Over here, they have the same hand. They have the 5, 4, 3, deuce, ace. So they also have a wheel, okay? What's the difference? Okay, now we know that they both have the same low hand. They're going to be chopping the low. At the high hand, what do we have here? These guys right here are going to not only use their ace 3 for the low, but he's going to use his 3, 6 for a high, because he has deuce, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this guy right here has the high and the low. If he bets out this one, you never want to raise when you only have a nut low, because likelihood somebody else has a nut low too, just like this hand shows you. This happens all the time. When people raise and the only thing that they have is a low, I want to punch them in the nose.
No, I won't.
Well, it depends. If you're this hand, but let's say you're over here, you also have an ace 3 in this hand over here. You're now getting not just only half of the low, but you're going to get a third of the low. So because it's a split game, the pot is going to be split up. We're going to split up because they both have a low. So let's say there's $100 in the pot. $50 of that split pot is going to go to the high hand, and that's going to be given to seat number 2 because they had the straight 3, 4, 5, 6, or deuce 3, 4, 5, 6 for a high straight of 6. And they're also qualified for the low with the 5, 4, 3 deuce ace, and they also qualified with the 5, 4, 3 deuce ace. So guess what? They get to split the $50 that's remaining. So this guy over here made $75, and this one only made $25.
And what you call, excuse me, I'm bouncing back. That's called being quartered.
It is called being quartered, and it's awful.
Yeah, the question.
When there's a lot of raising going on, and you're only going to get a small back. So you'll be lucky if you make your own bets back. Sometimes you'll lose money even though you were in all the way and you had the best hand in the low.
We have a question here. Roberta says, could you use the ace for both the low and high? Ace 2, 3, 4, 5, and a pair of kings with ace kicker. Does that make sense? Makes sense, but you can't do that because the seat 3 has no high hand. Certainly they have a wheel, but the wheel is not as high as a straight to the 6.
6 high straight. So
6.
let me show you what they have. Let me spell it out. So here's the deuce. Here's their 3. Here's the 4. And here's the 5. Okay, those are the 3 community cards plus their 2 cards, which gave them the wheel. But they also had a 6 in their hand. So now that makes that a 6 high straight. So now they have a high hand. Does that make sense? They could use that, and so rarely, once in a while, you'll find that everybody has a low, but there was no high. Let's say this wasn't a straight. Maybe it was this, and that made the low, and they both had the same low, and there was no straight. Then yes, the king with the ace kicker would have won, which is sad, but it worked. I mean, it happens sometimes, but rarely. Because remember, you're not really playing for the low, you're playing for the high, and the low comes if you're lucky.
And I want to invite anyone, if you have a question, please go ahead and put it in the chat. And I'm going to go ahead and say chat here.
Yeah.
So that you'll know where the chat is. Because sometimes.
And Donna, you wanted to show them something?
I did.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and do that while I set up another.
You want me to do it again?
Oh, did you already do it? I'm sorry, I didn't know because I was like doing this. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. I'd like to, for everyone to tell us, type in what your takeaway was from this first hand. By the way, Lupe, you did an excellent job of explaining that. So
okay.
If you'll.
I'm gonna start teaching you how to counterfeit, because that's the thing that I think people get really confused on, because they're like, well, wait a minute, I had the low when they're playing. They're like, they went ahead and called a bet or whatever because they thought that they were eligible for a low, and the way that I was taught was to learn how to count your cards backwards instead of forwards. That way you know how to count your cards. So the other thing I want to do is real quick, I'm going to set up this screen real quick. I'm going to show you some starting hands, what I was talking about, just so that you can have them. And I'm going to post these in the event page so that you have that. And just remember also, we are recording this session, so it will be up on YouTube, everything that we're doing here, so you'll be able to stop it and start it whenever you want to, and take notes or mess around with your own cards at your own kitchen table. The other thing is that last week's is up on YouTube right now. It's a WPA, and I'll post the link on the WPA Facebook page and the group page. I'm gonna share with my screen real quick. Share. Okay. So you could take a look at some of these. Those are the top Omaha high-low starting hands. Remember what I talked about, the ace, ace, deuce, trey, double suited, ace, ace, deuce, 4, double suited. Those are really strong really strong, because they not only give you potential for the nut flushes, but they also give you the potential for straights and then the nut lows. So remember, the objective in Omaha is to scoop the pot. You want 100% of the money if you can get it. Okay. Donna, you can see this, right?
Yes.
Can you just talk about this, like I set up these hands? I don't know.
In relationship to the best starting hands and the playable hands.
Yes.
I think
I have the playable hands down here. Let's see. Here you go. I can't see it all, but go for it.
One of the things that I learned about Omaha was that you always, to have a good hand in Omaha, you really, especially if you're doing high-low, you really need to have an ace. And you notice there's an ace, always an ace in there. And that's, people will start with, they'll think, well, I like runs 3, 4, 5, 6. That's ridiculous, especially with high-low. Or some people like those middle cards, 6, 7, 8, 9. Double suited, they're going, oh, well, that's double suited, that's wonderful. That's just hands that you want to forget about because you're sunk. Type your questions. We want to see what your takeaway is. Tell us what is working for you in relationship to learning this way. So give me some words, some questions. I don't see you. Do you hear me? Say, yes, I hear you. Let me think. What else can I say? Double suited. Yeah, double suited is really important. Yes, double suited, possibly get the nuts. That's important. To having a double suited. And I actually, when the first time that I actually made, I made some decent money in Omaha high-low was at Beau Rivage in Biloxi. And it was in, gosh, it had to be either 99 or 2000. And it was, even though it was a high-low, I was afraid of the game. It was a 10-20 game. And I was afraid of it because that was a very expensive game. And I decided that I was only going to be playing high hands, even though it's a high-low game. And you have to be really careful when you do that. And that was my first really big win. I was very, very careful. How about double pairs? It depends on the pairs. Depends on what they are. You've got ace, ace. If you have ace, ace, king, king, that's not good for high-low. If you have ace, ace, deuce, deuce, well.
I'm playing ace, ace, king, king. I don't care because I also believe that the strongest hands are the Omaha high. The low part is great. It really is. But if no low cards come on that flop, your hand is a monster.
No, I'd be playing it too.
I'd be playing it. Okay, I'm going to turn this around. I'm sorry. Let me stop the screen.
That's all right. The other question while you're doing that, if you have ace, ace in your hand can only use the ace once for the low, right? Correct.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to turn this around, and I've randomly. Can you see it all now?
Yeah, it's a little out of focus, but we can see it. I'm not sure the left, the seat one. I'm not sure.
Move it over?
Yeah, it was glaring. It's catching a glare.
That's because I got overhead lights. Can you see them? You tell me when you can see them.
I can see this 2 and 3, but it's the first card. It looks like maybe it's a 3 of diamonds, a 6 of spades.
It is.
I can't quite see and a 4 of hearts. I don't know what the other third card is.
Okay. 3 of diamonds, 6 of spades, ace of diamonds, 4 of clubs. 4 of hearts.
Okay.
And then the next hand is 5, 7, deuce, ace. And the other one is 8, 3, deuce, 5. And that one that has double suits, but they're not connecting. This one has only one flush, which the ace and the deuce with hearts. And it has a one gapper for a mid straight. And then this one here has the ace 3 of diamonds for the nut flush for that. And then some gappers, because there's a gapper between the deuce and the tray and the 5 and the 4. There's no 5 in that hand. But what I'm going to do is I've just pulled out all the low cards in this deck, and I'm just going to randomly put out a flop. And that way we can start reading the low cards. I don't care about betting or which is stronger, everything. I basically want to show you guys how to read a low. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. Okay, so the flop comes 4, ace.
Is your board on a tripod?
It's on some chairs.
Okay, see if you can tilt it so that the left side is pulled forward a little bit. It might get the glare off. Yes, much better.
Yeah?
Yep.
And I can move this closer. Whew, shit, I have red Kool-Aid on my thing and I just moved it. That would not have been good. Can you see?
Yeah.
Can you see all of them?
Much better. Yeah, Roberta said this is an eye test.
I'm so sorry, but I'm going to read off what they are. You know, you can make the screen as large as your screen, just so you guys know. On the controls, you can make this a full screen.
As Sandy had asked, 2 pair is average winning hand for no limit hold'em. What's the average for Omaha high-low?
2 pair is the average for winning?
Yeah, she's saying, yeah, but it's not as much for
Omaha. It's almost never.
Yeah.
2 pair is the weakest hand in the world. And we're going to, and remember in Omaha when we were talking about how every time the next card came, like the turn in the river, and if it was paired, it was almost guaranteed that there'd be at least a full house, if not quads. And if there's 3 cards of a flush, there's definitely the probability of a flush, somebody having a flush, is really high. There's a lot of it's a tough game because every time you turn one of the cards, it changes everything. Well, I can hold them, but a 2 pair is a rare win in an Omaha game. There's almost always a straight, a flush, or a full house, and even quads.
Yeah, and if you have a straight and flush comes, then you might as well just fold your hand.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So we're just for looking at our hands and seeing what's on here, just to see what we have in our own hands as a low. Now we know that there's a qualifier because there's an 8 for ace on the community cards. That's 3 cards that qualify this as a low hand. We're not going to go for the highs right now. We're just going to talk about the lows, okay? Now, if we were to look at our own hands in seat 1, seat 1 has an ace, a 4, a 3, and a 6. Anytime any of the cards that are on the community are in your hand, you have to pretend you don't have them. Okay? So now this is what you have. You have an 8. I'm going to put these in order so you can also see. It'll be a little bit easier. Okay. So now seat 1 has an 8, 6, 4, 3, ace. That's their low. It's an 86. In Omaha, that's not a very good low. Remember, the best low is ace, deuce, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Now let's move over to these guys. What do they have? Do they have duplicate cards? Yes. They have an ace. We're going to take the ace off. Okay, so now what do they have? Well, the best out of those cards that aren't matching is a deuce and a 5. The 7 goes over here. Okay, so right now, they don't have the best because the best would be a 2 and a 3 right here, right? Ace, deuce, 3 to be the best low. But they have a pretty good low with an ace, deuce, 4, 5, 8. Because you can only use 2 in your hands. 3 on the board, okay? Now let's go to the far end. I'm gonna have to, I can't reach the far end. Ha! Okay, I'm gonna go in front of you.
In relationship to deciding what that is, it's important to think of it in reverse. It's an ace, 5, 4, deuce, 8, 5, 4, deuce, ace.
Yeah.
Think of it in reverse rather than going ace, 2, 4, because you've got to think about it, because that is an 8, 5, and the other one is an 8, 6.
Right.
So think about it in reverse.
See how the low is? They had the A6. And this is a better low because it's an 8, 5. Okay, now let's go over to the far end. They have an 8. So we're going to take that. Whoops. We're going to duplicate that one. That one's gone. Oops. I don't know if I can dump this. But anyway. So if we go backwards, again, it's an 8. The best 2 cards over here is the 3, deuce, and the ace. So now we're talking about the nuts. That's the best low hand that there could be. 8, deuce, 3, 4, 8. Okay? Now, that's all fine and good. I'm going to shuffle up my cards. I have no idea what's coming out. And here we go. There's a 6. I'm going to turn these back over real quick. Ugh. Okay. Now, we know what our low hands were, right? The 6 didn't change much except for this guy right here. Because when they had a 6 in their hand, remember their best low was an 8, 6, 3, 4 ace. Now they've got 3 pairs. And they have a duplicate. So their low, even though they have a low, it's with a 3 only. That's what you call a live 3. That's it. Their best, because they duplicated over here, unless there's a deuce tray in play, their 3 is the best that they have for a live, okay? So that's not looking so good right now, except for they have 3 pairs. Now, that was for the high. Now this one, remember this was still duplicated. Their deuce was still good, their 5, but look what happened here. Now all of a sudden, they have a deuce, 5, they have if we went backwards, they have a 6, 5, 4, deuce, ace, okay? The only hand that can beat them for the low is a 2 and a 3. But with that 5 and the 7, now they have a straight. They have a decent low, not the nut low, but they have a straight because they have the 4, the 5, the 6, the 7, and the 8 with a 5 deuce for their low. So it's 6, 5, 4 deuce ace. Am I making any sense? Are you guys getting this?
No, you're doing really well. The comments were, why can't 3 pair be a thing in Omaha? It is a thing in Omaha. It sucks your it sucks your bankroll.
Yeah, it really, because if you've got like sometimes you'll have 4 cards in your hand, and those 4 cards are the community cards on the board. If any of them pair, then you've got a full house, but that doesn't mean you have the nut full house. Sometimes it might be that, let's say you have king, 10, 9, 8 in your hand. Let's just say, and there's a king, 9, 10, 8 on the board, and all of a sudden the river is another 8. So now I have 8s full of kings because I have an 8 and a king in my hand. But the guy next to me has pocket kings, or pocket 10s. He's got me beat because he's got higher pockets than I would. So they're just not worth putting your money in for. Yeah, they'll hit once in a while, just like anything will hit once in a while, right? Even if you play 9 deuce off suit, that'll hit once in a while, but it's a bad idea. You don't want to lose money. Okay, so let's go back over here. So we have still, on these guys, they don't really have much of a high because they don't have a straight. They only have a pair of 8s, but they still have the nut low. They still have the deuce trait. It hasn't been ruined, okay? So most likely this person is probably going to either bet and raise because they have a decent low. They don't realize that there's another deuce tray out there, but they're going to bet the high. And because, but that guy over there still has a flush draw. He has two clubs in his hand. Nobody else does. Okay. We'll go one more. Here we go, here we go, here we go. We got some serious trouble now. Okay, let's still talk about the low. We already counterfeited those aces, remember? So that one's gone. And then that one's gone. So now what we have is this guy's got a straight because he's got the 5-7. This one has a low. No, yeah, they have the live 3, which is not very good. And this one still has the nut low, but they don't have a high. They have aces and 8s, which is a shitty hand, okay? But what we also have now are 2 people that have aces, and they have 2 aces, meaning that they've got trips up here, and they could use that as one of the cards, and they have to use a second card. This person did not pair up with any of the other cards, so they only have trips with a 7 high. So A7 is their high, and their low is a deuce 5. It's not a super strong hand. They probably are going to lose, but because the ace looks so pretty, they're probably going to call because that's what people do.
Move your board over just a little bit to the right. It's hard to see. Yeah.
To the right? My right?
Yeah, or else move the computer back to the left. To your right. Yep, that's better. Thank you. And Fatima wanted to know, to explain the live 3 again, please.
Okay. So, let's go back over here. We're going to look at this hand anyway. When they called their hand, they had a pair in the very, very beginning of the flop. They had an ace and a 4, which were duplicated here. So those had to get counterfeited, right? So that meant that they had their best low on the flop was an 8, 6, 4, 3, ace. Then a 6 came out on the turn. They still had, because now there's more than 2 of their cards on the board, they get to add those back in. They can use them, but they're looking for the card that isn't duplicated, which is this one, okay? So this is what we call the live 3. If you look at these cards, let's still look at the duplication cards. I still have to use 2 of these. My best 2 lows is the ace and the 3, okay? So let's say that one doesn't work. Let's take the ace out over here. So I have the 6, the 8, the 6, the 4, my live 3 that keeps me in a low, and then an ace, because I can use these as my 2 cards down here. See? Ace, 6, 4, 3. Those are my best 2. Even though it was on here, if there's more than 1 duplicate on the board, you can still use it. If you have one that isn't on the board, that's called your live card, your live 3.
Yes, you still need your 2 cards and 3 community cards.
3 in order for high and for low. You have to have that. You have to use 2 cards for your high and 2 cards for your low. But look what happened over here. They went from having a live 3 only for their low, but they now have another ace to make the trips, and they have a 6, which gives them a full house. They have aces. Their ace makes the 3rd ace, and a 6 that duplicates it, which gives them a full house. They have aces full of 6s. So they're probably going to call, even though because the only card that can beat them is the ace 8. If somebody has an 8 in their hand with an ace.
Yeah, Judy said the takeaway is things can really change fast. She said, take your blood pressure medicine.
They really can. They really can. So let's look at this guy over here. Now then, remember we were talking about the live cards? Their ace is no good. Their live cards for their best low is a deuce, because remember it's not duplicated over here. And the other one that isn't duplicated is a 5. So now their best low is going to be an ace, or excuse me, a 6, because that's, take away the 8, that's the best 6, the best 5. 6, 5, 4, deuce, ace. Remember that the best low that could be on there is a deuce tray. The likelihood that there is a deuce tray out there is pretty strong. They also have the sexy ace over here, but nothing's duplicated. And what they're going to hope for if they called is that somebody who else had an ace didn't pair up one of these other cards. They're probably going to call because they did have the straight, and they're going to pray that that was good enough, and then they're going to say, oh, when it wasn't. They'll fold their cards and lose their money. This guy over here doesn't have anything but the nut low. The only thing they're going to do is call. They're never going to bet. They're just going to check and call.
And unfortunately, the idiots who have it are the ones who raise.
Right. Sometimes they'll think that there's all kinds of action with the aces and all this other stuff, and that they're going to be the one that gets the big pot, because all these other people are going to get quartered. That isn't what happens. Especially if you don't have the in the lows, you don't want to do that, because there's the likelihood of other people having a deuce tray is very strong. So then you're just wasting your money. So is there any questions about how you count backwards? Are you getting it? Did you count backwards to get to the best of your 5?
Okay, so who wins this hand? Who wins the hand is the low goes to seat 3. The high, because of the deuce 3, they have the best low.
This is their best low. We're going to take out those, because the ace was duplicated and the 8, there's 3 that are lower. This is the best low that's out there. And you see that it's not a wheel or anything. It's just the best low.
Okay, so right now, the low hand goes to seat 3.
Right.
They get all the low.
Yes. Now, even though they have a 5 in their hand, their 5 doesn't count, because the best 2 that they owned was the deuce and 3. The 5 and the 8 don't exist for them. Only these 2.
Yeah, and that's one of the problems when you start playing this, is you get confused because you're going, I have a wheel.
Right, but you don't, because you have to only use 2 in your hand, 3 from the board. If you could use 3 from your hand, then you'd be playing pineapple. It's a whole nother game.
Yeah, with pineapple, all I wanted to do is just, if I'm going to buy in for 100, just go ahead and get 10 tens and just go around and give everybody $10 and then just leave.
Right. So,
okay.
So the next best low hand was this one, because they had a deuce and they had a 5, a deuce 5. So their best was 6, 5, 4, deuce, ace, which wasn't good enough because they had a deuce tray. But this guy woke up and wound up hitting his ace and got the best high with.
So he got the high.
Yeah, because he got a full house. He had an A6 in his hand, and there was 2, one in his hand, and then one on the flop and one on the river. So he got an A6, and he wound up getting a full house. So this seat 1 got the full house, so they got the win. The low went to seat 3, and seat 2 called all the way down and lost their money.
Debbie said number 3 is great hand because it can be copied on the river and still win a betting hand on the turn.
Right.
And Fatima says, so seat 1 wins the high, yes. And seat 3 wins the low, yes. And they chop the pot, yes.
Yes, and then but seat 2, which are I keep calling them goo-haws, but they're the people who shouldn't be in, and they still stay and pray. They stay and pray, and then they wind up spending money.
What I want you to understand is, I don't consider them goo-haws or whatever your word was, is I'm actually delighted that they're there because they're building the pot.
They are. They are.
So
But
you want
don't
them
be
there.
a goo-ha.
Yes, don't be a goo-ha.
Don't be a goo-ha.
Yeah, you don't do it. Yeah,
Right.
dead money. That's exactly right.
It
But
is.
I want you to always applaud if they win. Congratulate them.
Yes.
Never,
Never, ever, ever say, how did you stay in with that to the river? Because you want them there. You know that the next time around, you're going to be scooping in their money.
Yes, and Louise Jean said, you split a lot of pots in Omaha 8, it seems. Yes, you do, because that's what you're doing. Generally, you've got a high-low. Now, in some of the games, when it's a kill or a half kill, I like that, because if one player scoops the pot and there's not a split and it reaches a certain limit, then the betting, the blinds are doubled. Double kill is they're raised up halfway. But I love games like the 8-16 full kill in the Biloxi was wonderful. What is a kill or half kill? A kill or half kill is when one player wins it all, and they scoop the pot, and they win a certain amount. There has to be a specific amount. Then the next hand, the blinds are doubled if it's a full kill. If it's a half kill, then they're raised up halfway.
It's usually, if you're playing like, if you're playing, let's say you're playing a 4-8 limit, and the kill will probably be $40. If you scoop a pot over $40, you're going to take it. 8-16, if it's usually like, actually they're crazy. They're like $60, and it's easy to have a $60 pot in 8-16. I'm going to set up a couple more hands over here.
Sure.
But I'm going to show you the difference of what happens when the low doesn't come.
Yeah, and the kill means that one person gets the entire pot. They don't split it. Debbie says she likes Big O because the 5th card causes more people to play pre-flop and turn, so more money in the pot, and don't forget the rake. Oh, you're absolutely right. So Louise Jean says, so much more thinking in Omaha 8. I prefer Omaha High and win a whole pot. Yeah, well, that's good. I love Omaha High. That is my favorite, but Omaha 8 is a fun game. But you have to really...
It also is the O in horse. So if you want to play the horse games, you're going to have to be an Omaha high-low player. That's just it. And I'm going to tell you that sometimes you'll be happy with just getting half the pot, because at least you're getting half your money back for a hand that you would have lost entirely in another situation. Okay, you guys keep talking. I'm setting up a hand.
Okay, I like this, that you're talking to me with your chat. That's great. Thank you so much for doing that. Please see my question above about raising. Okay, hang on. I must have missed it. Okay, so you said not to raise on the river with the nut low. You would only raise the river with the nut high? Yes. Or when do you raise on the other streets? You only raise if you have multiple potentials in the hand. If you were here last week, I said then, and thank you very much, Lupe, for saying that I told you something when you first started playing and it has helped. I said what you wanted to have is at that time, I said you wanted to have 4 hold'em hands that played together. And now, because of how many people play and understand the game, you need to have 6 hold'em hands that work together based on the numbers and the suits. So if you've got the nut low and there's multiple people in the pot, the potential of somebody else having the low and you split that is high. The biggest problem is when you have somebody else have the low, and it's what I call getting quartered. You only get a quarter of the pot. You would only raise the river with the nut high? I would say yes. Or when do you raise on the other streets? Oh, it just all depends. There's no way I can say when you raise on the other streets, because there's so much going on based on what people are doing. And one of the things I want you to remember is that anytime you are at the poker table and you're not in the hand, you need to be profiling, continually profiling, because that's what gives you the information. You want to see and you want to know what other players are generally starting with. You know, it's like I usually have a notebook with me, and I'll even make notes about what somebody starts with, because I want some information. And the more information you have, the better you are at playing the player. Because granted, in Omaha, we have to play the cards, I think, even more than the players, but you got to watch the players too. You know, you get the tails off the players. Okay, what we got here? Oh, and these look pretty good except for seat 2.
Okay.
Can't see the second card.
Seat 2?
Yeah.
That's a 5 of hearts. Ace, 5, 6. I'm going to have to get the 8x10 cards instead of the 5x7 cards. So, can you see this hand at all?
Yeah, the left one's fine.
Okay. Ace, jack of clubs, 10 of diamonds, 8 of hearts. The seat 2 has ace of spades, a 5, 6, 8, 2 clubs. Seat 3 has a deuce of clubs, a 3 of hearts, and a 6, 5 of diamonds. And in seat 4, we have the ace of hearts, a deuce of diamonds, a 4 of hearts, and an 8. Just really quick, tell them which hand out of all those hands would you call?
I would not call number 1. Well, it depends. Well, you're double suited, right?
Nope, single suited, ace jack with a jack 10 and an 8.
No, there's no double suits. It's high
only
low.
One single suit.
Yeah, and I would not call with that hand.
Okay.
The second one, what's the second card?
5 of hearts.
I'd be folding that hand.
Okay. Next one.
2, 3, 5, 6. I don't like it, but that is a potential. I might stay in with it.
Okay.
And the fourth one, I might stay in with it. I still don't like the 8.
Okay.
But it's got the ace 4 of hearts. So I might play the 3 and 4. How about you?
I'm going to tell you, me personally, I would definitely call the seat 4. I might call seat 1 only because I'm just going to see if it hits high.
Got it.
I'll tell you that you're going to see this kind of crap hands being played all the time in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
You really want to stick with things that are within your range. This, because it doesn't have a low in it, I rarely am going to call. But if I'm in the big blind, or if it's only going to cost me, maybe I'm in the small blind and it's only going to cost me just a little bit to see it, I'll go ahead and see it. But I'm definitely, out of all these, I would call the last one. That's the strongest hand in my opinion. Okay?
It is.
So now we're going to see the flop. Okay? The flop comes out Queen of clubs, 9 of spades, 7 of hearts.
Oh my.
Right. So remember that in order to have a low hand, you really want to see at least 2 of the 3 flop community cards below, 8 and lower. If you don't see 2, don't try going runner, because you're going to wind up spending a lot of money in the long run. Okay. So if I am remember I like the one on seat 4. If I'm seat 4, I'm freaking out of there. If I am seat 3, I'm freaking out of there.
Yep.
Now you've got these 2 people left. What do they have? Well, this guy's got a wrap 9, 10, jack, queen, which is a good thing, right? Because it's the highest you can go at this point. But this one doesn't know that I have the jack 10. So he thinks his little 6, 7, 8, 9 is good. for a wrap a straight. So this one bets. This one says, I'm going to peel one off and see what happens.
Yeah, and the second hand might have been in there because the 6 and 8 are clubs, correct?
The 6 and 8 are clubs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and players will say, "Oh, I have suited 6-8." Remember, I said before that people like those middle cards that people are playing in Hold'em, and
this is a perfect example of why they are not strong in Omaha.
That's right.
Because even if you have the 5, 6, 7, or 5, 6, and 8, which is you could go low, you can go high. So in this one, you'd be the 6, 7, 8, 9. You need a 5, which you already have, which means one of your outs is gone, and or you'd have to get a 10, and you're wrapped. But still, you're not wrapped to the nuts. This guy's wrapped to the nuts. Okay, so those middle straights, if you back into one on a luck draw, okay, but really don't count on those as being winning hands because they usually aren't. Now we're going to see the turn. The 3 of clubs. It didn't help anybody except for this guy stayed in, right?
Uh-huh.
So now this guy thinks, oh, well, I got some clubs because they've got a 6 and 8. Now they've got the 3. They need a 4 to make the 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 5, 6, 7. It's just like they still have those same stupid combinations that they had before. These guys over here, now he's got nut club draw, still has the nut straight draw. I'm liking this hand, okay? This one thinks, well, maybe this guy was going high because he bet it out. Maybe my low will be good with my ace 5 being shitty, but this guy bet it out, so he probably is going high. That's what they're thinking, right? So here we go. We still do not have a low. Why? Because we only have 2 cards that are 8 and lower. Only 2. We do not have a low on this board yet. Here is the river. Talk about a shitty ass problem for these people. Nobody has a good hand. The best hand here is this is just like Hold'em, queens and a 9 with the best 2 cards over here, which is an ace jack, right? They don't even have a pair. They don't have a pair either. So their best is ace 8. You know that anyway. If this one bets out because he's feeling ballsy, which they probably aren't, they're probably checking it. He's probably checking it, they're probably checking it, and they're going to turn it over and go, look at that shitty ass hand. And this person's going to take down the money because they had just like having ace king and nothing else to go with it.
Roberta says, how often do you see this?
Oh my God. All the time. and it's hard because, that's why you need to be tight. Either an aggressive bettor to push people with the marginal hands off if you're bluffing. But I'm going to tell you, bluffing is not the same in Omaha as bluffing in Hold'em. In Hold'em, if you bluff, you usually have made it in no limit Hold'em very, very expensive for them to see it. But in Omaha, it's because you keep pushing and pushing and pushing the pot. And then with these cards up here, and they didn't hit any of their stuff, if I bet it out, they're probably going to fold. Because I've been betting it out since the beginning. I liked my hand, but they don't know what I have.
Yeah,
I can queen.
Yeah, if you're in that position and you've been betting out, it's important to go ahead and bet.
Yeah, but what would have happened? Now, you want to know the bluff way to bluff? If this one bets out, okay, and you look at this and you raise them, just because.
Just because.
This one's going to say, oh shit, I don't have a queen, and they're going to fold and say, that was terrible, right? But neither one of them had a queen, but they don't know it. They don't know if they have pocket 7s. He doesn't know if he has pocket 3s. He doesn't know nothing. So, but if he comes back at you, then you're going to be the one that folds. Then it's just a power play like you would in any other game. Okay, that was a lot of information. Are you guys completely bamboozled now? Because we're at the end of our time, actually. And I know it's a whole lot of information.
Yeah, Roberta says her brain is fried.
I'm so sorry.
And Fatima said, she says, no, Louise Jean says, no, all good. Fatima said, sorry, she had to go. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Now,
So,
you're doing a really, really good job. And I really like the cards, the way you're doing that. Next time, if you tilt the board forward a little bit.
okay. Okay, maybe I can get an easel instead of my chairs that are, it's just really large. Yeah. So, and I'm short. It's hard to manipulate everything.
I can't reach it though from here.
Yes. Okay, you guys, I know that was a lot. I'm going to put the starting hands up on the events page for today for this game. This recording will also go up on our YouTube channel. And I'll post the link for that as well so that you guys know where to go look. And you can see last week's seminar and then today's seminar. It is an awful lot of information to go through in an hour's time. And really what this was simply an introduction to just kind of see what Omaha does. I strongly recommend that you do some Google searches and look at Omaha High-Low books. And there's a ton, because I did it, videos on Omaha on YouTube. So if you just put in Omaha, how to play Omaha High-Low, you're going to get a ton of different YouTube videos. And they're not an hour long like this was. They're like 10 minutes. And so you can see several of them, or they'll just take one hand and analyze it. And that's really good.
And Louise Jean said she liked the counting backwards on the low, and that's really an important part of it. It's really critical for you to get in the habit of counting backwards because that's what's rated. It's how you need to understand how to count backwards.
Right.
And what do I put into search on YouTube for this presentation? Just go to the WPA channel.
Yeah, it's going to be Women's Poker Association on YouTube, and I will post the link on our WPA board on our page and on our group, so that you'll be able to do that. I'm having a little bit of a challenge with the editing process, so Chris Reed, I'm sorry I couldn't get you out of your bikini on that last one. That's the way it goes. So everybody, thank you all so much for your time, your attention. Donna, thank you for assisting with me. It's a pleasure as always. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to email me at lupe@wpa.poker. And of course, if you are not a member of the Women's Poker Association, you really should consider it. It's only $30 a year, and our whole mission is to unite women in poker and to elevate us in our game and to pretty much let the industry take notice of how they need to embrace women and get us more women into the poker rooms. So good night to you all. Thank you again. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week for Stud High. Oh, such a pleasure. Oh, no. Raz.
Raz tomorrow? Okay, next week?
Yes,
okay.
Raz is next week, and Linda Johnson won her bracelet and Raz, and you'll have to, maybe I can get her to tell the story. We'll do that.
Maybe that, and if you like to talk about mindset shifting, reach me at donna@biggirlpoker.com.
Very good. I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.